Hey everyone, welcome to another video in the Golang series. And in this video, we are going to talk a little more about web servers and how to build them, the common frameworks and libraries that Go provides. So, if you haven't already watched, please watch the net HTTP video. Here we talked a little about the HTTP package and how to make a simple GET request, writing a simple handle func method or your base first API. Uh, and Although we're going to discuss more mostly from scratch, but it would help to have just a little bit background on this topic. All right, so there are three most popular frameworks, libraries, packages, whatever you want to call them in Go that you will hear about. Gin, I think it's called Kai. Everyone will have different pronunciations. You can go with G, it doesn't matter. And then there's Gorilla Mux. So, all of these are used to make get HTTP request. For example, if you have get, post, delete, put, anything, right? Uh, but they differ from each other in some aspects. So, for example, Gorilla Mux, it's basically just it helps you create a router. Whereas Sky or Jin, they are more or less, they would also, of course, create a router, but they provide middleware supports and they have a lot more customizations available to them. And Gorilla Mux, as of today, is not no longer maintained. So, yeah, it is archived. I mean, you can still use it if you want. You'll find ample documentation around it. Um, but most of the developers would go with either Jin or Kai or even the net HTTP package. So if we talk about the learning curve, both of them are quite easy, not a lot, to learn about. Of course, depends on what you're building, but the initial setup should be easy. I've mentioned something about performance. I don't think it matters too much for this video. Again, Gorilla Mux, 4 out of 5 stars. Again, this is some data I got from ChatGPT. You can ignore that. But Jin and Kai, very similar in terms of performance. In terms of feature comparison, they of course provide you to create routes. You can group routes. You can They have some pre-built middlewares, or you can create your own middlewares. There are some JSON bindings, some validation, some testing, flexibility, and all that. You can go through this table, and then there's advantages and everything else. So I've added some small interview questions also. If you can read through that. Um, for this series, I'm going to be using Gin. It's something that I've actually worked with a little bit, so I'm more familiar with this. I'll try to see if I can make something out of Kai at the end. Let's see. I need to read about this for a little. Uh, but in this video, we are going to make a very small project. So the project is going to be simple. I'll just write it down. We are going to make two APIs. One is going to be post and one is going to be get. We are going to take user info and um, we're going to and store somewhere. Now I'm saying somewhere because we're not exactly going to use a database right now. I think that should need a separate video. So that's why I'm saying to store somewhere, and then based on ID provided, retrieve user info. That's it. That's all we're gonna uh, read about make in this video. So a very simple server is needed for this. So yep, here it is. So the Gen documentation is great, by the way. Please go through that. It has a lot of examples. So I'm gonna just use parts of this code. And that's Uh, so when you have you need to create a router which is gin.Default. So it has certain things, some middlewares that are already injected into it. And then to declare the route, you just need to mention the method, the endpoint, and the function that's going to get called. And then router.run. And by default, it runs on this port. Otherwise, you can specify the port. That's up to you. So as I mentioned, we just need a get and post. So delete this. Don't need this as well. Hit save. This is the library. And what are we gonna do? So so we let's say for user slash ID, and let's say this is gonna be just user. That's it. Since this is a post endpoint, it is going to let's say it's for add user, and it is gonna have some information that it's gonna contain. So let's say let's add user. One thing to note when you're defining methods, it has something known as gin.Context, which basically contains all the information about your all the information that is coming in. So let's use that. So this C contains everything that the gin.Context holds. So it contains the request, the writer, params, handler. There's a long list. You can read a little about it. Um, and we are gonna need let's say get user, simple, right? So func get user, and again it's gonna have c gin.Context, and it's gonna return something. Now, first I need to make figure out where am I gonna store this information. So since right now I'm not making any database connections, I'll just store this information. Store in a map. So how do we make a map? Let's say let's call the map users, and we make a map with make. There's a map keyword. It will take in a string. The string will be the ID, and it will contain the user information. So I'm going to say user. Now, what exactly is this user? This user is going to be a struct that I define. I know we haven't talked about structs till now, but struct is more or less a custom data type, not exactly a data type, but a custom structure that you define, which you can use to store for the information. For example, this is how you define a struct, by the way. A struct user type user, this will be a struct. And what do I want for my user? It's going to have an ID. ID is going to have type string. And one more thing that we need to add over here is JSON ID. Now, what exactly is struct? What exactly this is? We'll talk about that. Uh, it, that's a separate video in itself. So for now, just please try to follow along. Uh, and it's gonna say name. And I actually let's just do this for now. I just wanted to show you how to make two fields. All right. Let's start with add user. Let's say. All right. So when you're adding a user, of course, send in a request, right? So that request will contain the body. So let's say I declare a user, and this is of type user. Now, one thing we generally do over here is we have a method called c.should uh, bind JSON. I don't know why it's not coming up. Okay, so it's c.bind user should bind JSON. Let's say and user. So it basically takes in this user, the variable that you've declared of this type, and it's gonna try to map this information to it, whatever you've sent in your whatever you sent in your request payload. Let me just reload it. I don't know why the definitions aren't coming up for me. Fine, we'll deal with it later. And it will throw in an error if it's there. So let's say if error not equals nil, what do you want to do? We don't want to process it, right? So what we'll do is we'll write C. So we return the response in JSON. I don't know why it's not working for me. Okay, c.json. It will generally contain let's say the HTTP dot let's say status bad request. And I can send in some so just JSON method. It takes in two things, the code and an object. How to create the object that I'm going to return is gin.H, let's say error, um, bad request. This is not the best error, so but it's fine. It should work for now. And I need to return. I don't want to do anything, right? If everything passes, then what do? I just say this user dot id equals user. Save in the map whatever information we got based on the ID. And then we write c.JSON, http dot status accepted maybe, and gin dot h and user. Is user not the correct term? Okay, needs to be an object, right? Um, user saved, and let's say I return user. Cool. And let's do one thing. Let's run it. We'll get to the get API in a bit. Let's do this. Let's run this. Go run main.go. And I also need to make in a request, so I'll use Bruno. I think that's okay. Let's see. Let's make a new request. It's going to be of type host http slash local host 8080. It is user. It's going to take in a body which is going to be of type JSON. It will take in an ID which will be, let's say, 1. It will take in the name which, let's say, is mine, Chirag. And let's see. Cool. It says 202 accepted and it got my name. And if you see in the terminal, that is exactly what I get here. User endpoint was hit, 202, this is the time taken, and everything looks fine. And yeah, that's it. Now, how do I retrieve it? How do I make sure it's actually saved? So this will only get saved till the server is running because I'm using a map. It's an in-memory map, so whenever the server goes down, everything gets deleted. But that's fine. That's fine. All right. So over here, you know that we are going to pass in an ID. What will be the ID? The ID is a param over here. So let's say var ID is you do c dot I think it's c dot params. Let's see. Parameters and paths. Yeah, c dot param and the name c dot par. What happened now? Okay, I don't need var. C dot param, and it is going to. It already gives me a nice documentation on how to retrieve it. That's great. Okay. Now, what do I need to do? I just need to search in the map, right? So what's the way to search in a map? Just say users ID. Now, if you remember my video on the functions where we discussed how map works, it returns two things. It will return, let's say, the response, and it will return, let's say, exists, which is basically a boolean which tells me does that key exist in the map. So if exists, if not exists, actually, we just want to throw in an error. What do we want to do? We want to say c.json. It's gonna say http dot status not found. Is that, yep, status not found. And let's say gin.h error nothing found. Cool. And just return. Else, We already have this response, right? It is users.id, so just return this c.JSON, hdp.status okay, gin.h, user info, user response, and there you go. That's it. Now we'll just restart the server, and we'll have to create the user again. Uh, cool. And there it is. Let's actually create one more request. I want to show you what happens when I now just because I restart the server, my first user will not exist, right? So there's no user ID one. If I do this, nothing found. Cool. If I save in the user, okay, it says 202. Let's start run, and I get the user info. Pretty cool, right? So again, I know went through maybe just a bit fast, but it's okay because we didn't really cover too much about what router is, how to, you know, what all middlewares are. We'll get to that in a lot of details in the upcoming videos. But I just want to show you how a simple application would look like. Now, of course, we can replace this with a database to make it persist. We need to talk about what structs are. We need to talk a little more about how to extract information from the API or you know, um, how to send in that information back to the user. And we'll talk a little more about some complex logics. And but for that, you need to stay tuned. So we'll see a couple more examples on what Gin is capable of in the upcoming videos. So see you guys in next time. Bye bye.